Hello and welcome back to Tech Innovation Talks powered by MJV. I'm your host, Paul Duache, and as ever, we'll be bringing you some quick snippets from the world of tech and innovation in the form of focused, concise discussions on the burning issues of the week's chosen topic. And this week's conversation is centered around retail. Over the past couple of years, the retail environment has seen some major changes take place. Due to the pandemic and lockdowns, customers have got tech savvy, and as a result have become more demanding and discerning, especially when it comes to retail. Companies in turn have been forced to provide more options for their customers to retain their loyalty and stay relevant in an increasingly competitive environment. In a jam-packed show to discuss all this and more, I'm joined this week by Kalinka Gonçalves, who is the Latin America General Manager at Zuru Toys. Kalinka has a well-rounded CV when it comes to understanding the retail sector, having had experience in marketing, business strategy, and sales, both in the Asian market, the South American market, and in her current home in glorious sunny Southern California. Hello and welcome, Kalinka. How are you today?
Hi, Paul. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm not too bad. Just before we start, I just wanted to ask what you're looking forward to sharing with our audience today.
I think a little bit of my experience and perspective of the new trends that we are seeing and what is the technology that we are using in day by day in our lives, but also share a little bit of what we see as the differences between developed and underdeveloped economies and how the technology impacts these two in a very different ways.
Perfect. Sounds fantastic. So let me start off by asking you a little bit about new retail, in a term that Alibaba uses to describe the blending of online and offline commerce. It's practically impossible to talk about retail and not mention online and e-commerce. At the beginning of the new retail discussion, it was said that physical retail was dead, but now Amazon is opening cashier-free stores powered by technology. In your opinion, Kalinka, why are these online global giants opening physical stores?
We are living a very interesting moment because we have different generations and that are now shoppers or consumers, and I believe these retailers, they're trying to offer the right experience to this different consumer base that they have. So we have a generation that it's very used to purchasing online, and especially on developed countries where this experience is made much easier by technology and also how developed their logistics systems are. So you can receive the product in the same day, you can send it back, no costs for the consumer. All of that make it very easy and for the new generations to get in the habit of purchasing online. At the same time, we have generations that are not that used to that, that they still value the understanding what is the quality of product, to have an experience before purchasing, to touch the product. And that I think that retailers are understanding that, especially now during the pandemic and after the pandemic, that people are revisiting what are the values that motivate their purchases. And a lot of people are leaving the fast fashion or the fast consumer to more quality products that are more long lasting. I think the retailers are seeing the need to offer a way for the consumer to experience the product, to feel it, to touch it before making their purchase. I also think that when we are talking about underdeveloped economies, the are much consumers are much more conservative about in which product to expend their money. So they got to make sure that that product will attend all their needs, even because in the majority of the underdeveloped countries, it's not that easy to ship back a product that usually will involve costs for the consumer or costs for the company that are going to make that product more expensive. So considering all of that, and also that this consumer cannot purchase items regularly, it's a choice it's got to make because of the economical difficulties. I think it's very important for this consumer base to see what they're buying, to make sure that that product is exactly what they are looking for. And I believe retailers seeing these differences in the consumer behavior, they are trying to offer solutions that would attend these different consumer bases.
What about you personally? Have you felt the need to go back into the physical store yourself? I know I have personally.
Well, I'm a little more conservative about that. I never really left the need of going to the physical store. Although I live in Los Angeles, and that is very normal here. That was not my behavior. I like the experience. I like to touch, to feel, to smell products. That is so important for me. Like especially if I'm doing my grocery shopping, that for me is so. It's a very a different experience to just touch a button instead of taking the fruit in my hands and smelling it and feeling how ripe it is. And during the pandemic, I learned to purchase online. That was a different journey for me. And depending on the product, I think it's a better and easier, more convenient experience. So I think it will depend on what am I buying, what is the moment, what is the time that I have available, the convenience that will offer me.
Absolutely. Now let's dive a little deeper into the world of customer experience. Online offers several possibilities, both for consumers and retailers. But in terms of experience, physical and virtual environments are completely different beasts. Online tends to value convenience with shorter, more fluid experiences, whereas physical, on the other hand, offers us sensory, immersive opportunities. In recent years, we have witnessed the fusion between the physical and the digital, called O2O, online to offline, or Phygital. What is the importance of Phygital experiences for brands?
The way I see it is a bit of what we were talking before. Like I think the retailers and brands actually they understand they need to create breeds with all different consumer bases that they have, including to attract new consumers. And if it's a brand that was created more focused towards the online experience, they are probably not really offering the experience. They were probably not really offering the experience that would bring consumers that need a more sensorial experience to become to buy their products. And by offering the Phygital, they are pretty much being capable of connect with these different consumers that we have now, including because we are in a moment that also allows to have consumers, a huge part of the world population, I think, is right now rethinking their lives and what their lives and what are their consumer journeys and what is that they value besides the price and the quality of a product they are purchasing. And considering all that, I think that to offer more than just what is the convenience that a consumer is looking for, someone to be online and someone to be in a store, I think that the Phygital world offers a more wholesome experience because they can also communicate using these two different platforms. And by that, these brands can present themselves in a more consistent way to this different type of consumers.
Okay, let's switch focus slightly to technology and more specifically data. Advances in technology and the ease brought about by the smartphone boom have accelerated data production. I have some numbers I wanted to share with you, probably that you've heard before, but Google receives almost 4 million searches per minute. People watch 1 billion hours of YouTube videos a day, and more than 23.4 million apps are downloaded every hour. Wow, that's crazy. The influx of data has completely changed up the customer journey. Companies now need to be increasingly invested in omni-channel strategies to collect data and identify patterns. Google, for example, has its own theory on how to approach journeys and is attempting to adjust and create journey patterns. They call it micro moments. Kalinka, how does Zuru Toys manage to make sure it's there for their customers at the right time and in the right place?
When we are talking about more developed countries, and I will use USA for example, then it's much more, we have much more resources to collect the data. And in that sense, we do have a in-house team to process this data and feed us with information about these journeys and how is the decision making process of this consumer. In the USA, for example, that is easier to have this data to collect it. The company, we have an in-house team that will evaluate this data and feed us with the information of where the point of context that we have with the consumers, so we can build our strategies in terms of marketing and sales. Actually, it's important to understand when this journey starts, like how is this consumer getting in contact with our brand, or is getting contact only for our product, because we do see this a lot. Zuru is a recent, more younger company in the toy industry, and a lot of times we still see consumers actually evaluating the consumer journey. We have been learning that a lot of consumers know our products, trusting the name of the product, but are not aware of what is the company that is producing the product, like not our brand. And like all of that is, it's important for us to go understanding where do we still need to pivot our strategy so we can get in contact with this consumer, so he can learn more about us, to be more educated. Where are the moments that we can educate this consumer about us, so he can learn not only about our brands, but also what are the values of our company, what's our mission. So by doing that, by understanding a little of this journey, we have been learning a lot. But in order to do that, we rely a lot on technology, and we need to see what is that is available in terms of technology in the countries that we have an operation. For example, in Paraguay, Bolivia, we are still using 3G. A lot of the population don't have a credit card. So even like Mexico and Brazil, it's less than 50% of the population that has a credit card. So people are not that used to buy online. So we lose a lot of this contact, online content, where we can gather this data. And we still need to rely on the physical store, where the retailer is the one that's going to provide us this info.
Yeah, I know from an MJV perspective, one of the things that we really look to focus on when it comes to data is also being very careful and respectful with the customer's data. So when we're putting into operation and using data for our customers, we always make sure that we're following the guidelines, obviously, but also being very respectful. Kalinka, regarding product companies, we are seeing products as a service becoming more and more dominant. Do you agree that product service systems are on the rise? And how much do you think this shift is impacting retail?
I 100% agree it's on the rise. It's growing exactly because companies are focusing in the journey, the consumer journey, on the consumer journey. Because then if you are offering a service, you're also offering more convenience. And sometimes when you're offering, your first offer is a service, if you add a product to that, you're offering more convenience. And nowadays, in especially for the more developed economies, I see the convenience as one of the most important values of values that is guiding a purchase. So I think it's very interesting because that also shows there is no product that doesn't involve a use, right? If you're buying something, it's because you're going to use that. And I think companies are learning that if there is a use, there is a way that they can make that use better, or they can teach more ways to use that it can have a conversation with their consumer about how to use a product. And if it's the service, the same thing, how to make the best of that. And I believe that also this dialogue that's happening much more now, and that the consumer is asking for, is also part of why companies are moving into having a more complete offer to their consumer.
Sounds like you see it as being a very positive, progressive change. Is there anything that you feel is a bit of a drawback? Anything that maybe we're losing out on?
I believe that we it's important to have in mind that companies that were created to offer products, it's to become to adapt to this new reality of products and service. It's going to take time because they need to evaluate where to insert that new offer. How does that really, how that really makes sense. So it's not only, oh, let me add that because that is the new trend and it's what my competitor is doing. And that takes time. As is the same thing for the new search for sustainability. That's amazing. It's that what we all want. And I don't like to think the companies are this Machiavellic being that are just looking for profit, but they need the profit to pay the employees, to pay their costs, to produce, and to be really sustainable takes time. Takes You got to evaluate what is your where you're sourcing your products, who are your suppliers, what is the entire chain of production needs to be reevaluated. Otherwise, it's not real. And I believe that the companies need to do that. Meanwhile, keeping the right price and the right offer and the right product. Meanwhile, developing and evolving their products accordingly to what the consumer needs now. So it's not that a company can stop what they really do and be like, now let me focus on being sustainable. And all of that require resources and time to be real. And I think that we are living a moment that a lot of times the consumers, they just cancel a company or a brand. I'm not understanding that that it's a process, right? And we are all learning. This is so new to all of us. And unfortunately, there are companies that have these new values in their DNA, but others don't. So I think that we just need to. I think in the future, all companies should have, especially the ones that we continue to buy from, to support, should have these values in their DNA. So if you were a company that offers products and now you're offering service, it's an adaptation, and you got to hire new professionals. You got to hire MJV to learn what is the right service that you want to offer, what really makes sense. So all of that, and sometimes you don't have in house the people that has that knowledge, and that takes time. So I just think that we are in a hurry to see that being offered by everybody, and it needs sometimes it takes longer than we really think.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of companies are making a lot of mistakes along the way, and maybe trying to force things through that don't come naturally to them. So I agree, it does make sense to outsource these kind of challenges occasionally. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about the future of retail. Why don't you share a couple of trends that retail executives need to be paying attention to in the next few years? The trends that you believe will be the game changers.
Well, I think again, the trends vary so much between countries and how developed they are, and cultures. It's not, about the trends is not only about what technology can offer or the economical power, but also about cultures, right? So, like right now in Latin America, I'm seeing a trend that I know it's not that new in some countries in Asia, but we are seeing products and services being offered in new retail area in areas that are not usually perceived as a retail area, like for example train stations, and that I think it's because after understanding that the consumer, especially in markets that they don't have that much access to technology, sometimes they don't even have if they're not in an area where they have Wi-Fi, they cannot use internet on their phone. And then in a country that they do have that, more developed countries, people are at the train and they are purchasing, right? They are making their groceries, shopping. They are, okay, I gotta get home and I want this to be at my door. But then you don't have that. How to offer the same experience? And then we start to see toys, for example, food, and other goods being offered at train stations, at schools' parking lots, area that people are not usually that we are not used to see retail experiences happening. Uh, and the other hand, we have in more developed countries the trend that is can be perceived if we look at the fact that this was not a part of the decision making, The fact that people are really looking for understanding how when they support a brand, what are they offering to their community? What are they offering to the world? Like, people are making these questions now, especially after the pandemic. And that is a trend that we all need to, as retailers, we all need to think about. Like, the consumer wants to understand that it's better for me to go on Amazon and buy 5 products by X price that are gonna last this, or for me to go to a store, buy a product that's gonna cost much more, but I know where it's made, I know what this brand is, it's their goal, what are they giving back to my community, what are the programs that they have, are they understanding our reality, or they're just here to sell? Consumers are making these questions now, and I think it's a very important trend that we need to have in mind for the future, and that will guide a lot of the decisions of the consumers.
Well, there you have it. I think that's a nice point for us to wrap things up at. Kalinka, you have metaphorically come in and said it all. So on behalf of everyone at MJV, thanks for being such a wonderful and insightful guest. And to you, listener, a reminder that this interview is available in video format via our YouTube channel and on podcasts through Apple, Google, and Spotify. And finally, if you want to understand MJV's vision on the future of retail, we recently put out a webinar highlighting retail trends, which you can access via the link in the description. But that's all for now. This is Paul C. Duarte signing off for Tech Innovation Talks, powered by MJV. Take care, and we'll be back with you soon.